And welcome back to episode 158 of the Weekly Tech Rant with me, Jay.
And me, Carl.
Welcome. We are back for what I can decidedly say is an episode that we probably didn't expect we'd be talking about a lot of things we're going to be talking about regarding
Really, no.
Apple. As I think in the show notes you put, hell has frozen over for Apple, and
has
it
indeed.
really has. But
Only
we'll
under
get to that.
specific circumstances.
Yes, indeed. It's a very specific hell. But before we get to that, we got a couple other tech stories to cover first on that, and a couple of lineups. But before we do that as well, a bit of housekeeping. So this is episode 158. We were going to have a 2-week quiet period over the next week. So we will have no episode released of the week of the 5th, no episode of the week of the 12th, and we should hopefully, all being well if the stars align, get episode 159 out to you some point in the week of the 19th of February. So a 2-week quiet period as we kind of got to map up some personal stuff and some work travel. We just can't get the stars to align on that this week, so we're going to have that break and come back, I'm sure, with a bumper crop of stories for us to cover on that piece. Did I miss anything, Carl? Was that it? I think it was it, wasn't it?
I think that's it.
Awesome. So, as I said, we have got this week for you the hell has frozen over Apple, but we've also got a couple of stories as well. First thing, we talked about this last week, which was about the Apple 5G modems, wasn't it? We were talking about like why Apple hadn't released a 5G modem, given that they acquired Intel's modem division, wasn't it? And I think they picked up a couple of thousand employees and loads and loads of patents, haven't they? But there's been an announcement by the Qualcomm CEO Cristiano Amon during their last quarterly update 24, saying that Apple have got a deal with them till at least 2026. Well, potentially 2027 if you look at it from a release point of view. So clearly things haven't worked out for Apple, have they, on this point with their 5G modems?
No. Because when did they buy Intel's modem division? That had to be like 3 or 4 years ago.
Easily.
So what is holding them up? Did they just buy something that was really, really crap?
Well, no, I think from some of the stories, and again, there isn't a statement from Apple on this.
Of course not.
And Apple haven't commented either on the extended deal with Qualcomm. The quote that Amon said on CNBC apparently was he's happy with the relationship. Well, that implies clearly that money's still flowing, isn't it? And their harbor's there. But apparently there was a report from Bloomberg last year that said, and again, this wasn't, this was Apple insiders, that they can't make it work in the sense that all of their prototypes are not performing above and beyond what the existing Qualcomm modems are doing.
Okay.
So it was 2019 they acquired them, $1 billion deal, 17,000 patents, and just over 2,000 employees joined Apple, and they don't seem to be getting anywhere.
Wow. That's a lot of money to spend not to get much.
Yeah, but don't forget, Qualcomm supplies all of the modems in the iPhones. Yeah. I would imagine they also do them in the iPads as well.
Yeah, and the watch, no doubt.
Yeah, and Qualcomm also provides the SAT communication modules that are used in the current generation of phones.
Yeah, they provide pretty much everything. So they've got the inside track there.
I have indeed. But I thought it was just, given this story came out, I think it was yesterday this story broke about the extended deal. It just wanted to follow up on that because we were both a little puzzled, weren't we, why, given that acquisition, Apple hadn't done that. But I guess sometimes you can throw money at a problem and somebody will do it better. Yeah, ultimately. And that's where we'll come to in a minute when we talk about some of the next story. But first off, given Microsoft's huge $69 billion, was it 67, 69? I can remember now. $1 billion.
68.7.
Yeah, I was close.
Yeah.
Given Apple's $68 billion acquisition.
Microsoft's not Apple.
What's wrong with me?
Microsoft's $68.7 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. There we go.
Thank you. That's the one. They are now looking at how they can make the deal more efficient, isn't it? And unsurprisingly, there has been a statement around job cuts, hasn't there, across the gaming division?
Yes, 1,900 employees have been given their marching orders across Activision Blizzard and the Xbox team. So it's not just all out of Activision Blizzard; it's a kind of across the company there, the joined company. I suppose they haven't said who these people are, but about 8% of the total gaming workforce. I imagine a lot are going to be back office staff where there's duplicate roles and responsibilities.
It's very likely, given you've bought a massive company that
Yeah.
itself has made up of lots of subdivisions, isn't it? And you're
Yes.
right, there is going to be a standardization approach. Like any acquisition, there are people going to be doing, like you say, those back office, finance, HR, all those kind of jobs that are there. Plus, dare I say it, some of the leadership will have to be thinned out, won't it, as well?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Mike Ybarra, who's president of Blizzard, and Alan Adam, who's co-founder and chief design officer at Blizzard. They're both stepping down.
which you would do because you're not running your company anymore, are you?
No, no, exactly. Yeah. Phil Spencer has said that, the leadership is committed apparently to navigating the process thoughtfully for those impacted. So hopefully, even if you are losing your job, there is a nice big payoff there. We'd hope,
I'd hope so. Look,
and the support that
these
goes with it in helping you find another job.
massively, and look, these things are never comfortable, and it's never a nice conversation to have. But what I
No,
would say is, this is not a shock.
no,
This
it's
is,
not.
given the amount of money they spent, given the size of these organizations, given also that Microsoft themselves have been letting some people go, haven't they, as well
Yeah, so
recently?
not just Activision Blizzard; it's across the entire Xbox teams.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
you know,
Having made redundant myself twice now, there is a good way of doing it and a not so good way of doing it, and I've been on receiving end of both, so it does vary.
yeah, and you're right. I mean, when you look at the numbers, nearly was it 1,900 people is a lot of people, but actually that's 8%, isn't it, of that division that
Yeah,
Microsoft have of gaming. So look, I do hope these people are treated well, but Microsoft have got to find a way to balance the sheets,
yeah,
haven't they?
they
Given
have,
this
yes.
money. But they're also across the industry. There's been other layoffs as well, isn't it? In the
Yep.
gaming part of it. So what was it? There was Discord, Twitch.
Is it Embracer
Um,
have done a load again, haven't they?
they have indeed, haven't they? Yes, that's right. Apparently, in January we saw Twitch cut a third of its staff,
Yep.
but that was part of a wider Amazon layoff, which interestingly was around their Prime Video and MGM Studios division. Now,
Yeah, which is an odd one.
which is not one because, but again, is that because again acquisition?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, potentially.
And I wonder whether again a lot of it's natural. People, leaving part of that, restructuring. But yeah, ultimately, the other one was Google. Apparently, 1,000 people go.
Okay, where
Uh,
was that from? I remember reading that article.
hardware. So well, it was
Oh,
so
yeah, the
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 hardware team
the
have gone.
assistants and the hardware division, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They've been slimmed right down. Um, I saw a number the other day that as this was September, so things may have changed. But as September last year, Google was, or excuse me, Alphabet was around 182,000 people.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot of people.
But last year was, well, the last year and the year before was a bloodbath, really, wasn't it, in
Yeah,
terms of layoffs? And I think we're seeing it again. But look, I think you've got to look at the bigger picture here in that the economic outlook isn't great. Tech companies are making money, which you would argue, well, why would you lay people off? Yeah, but the most expensive part of any organization is the people, isn't it?
of course it is,
So,
yeah.
you need to become more efficient. You need to slim down it, which is not a good way to look at it. And look, thankfully, I'm not on the receiving end of that. But those that are usually because they're either expensive, their roles are expensive, or somebody can do it cheaper, or in a
Yep.
game of M&A, there's somebody else doing your job as potentially as well, isn't it? It's a very
Yeah.
difficult situation. But I don't think we've seen the last of it. I suspect we're going to see more of this coming this year again as people line up. But yeah, you're right. The Embracia thing. I just found the link I had on my things. They also cancelled the new Juice X game.
They did indeed,
Now,
yes.
that was also the news I saw there as well, which I was really, apparently it'd been in development for 2 years. Eidos Montreal.
I could have done one of those. I quite enjoyed them.
It was the last one. Human. What was? Oh, I
A
can't
long
remember what
time
it's called
ago.
now.
Built 10 plus years ago, did it?
Yeah, then they got a kind of director's cut, didn't it? Release
Oh,
and
they had the mobile version of it,
that,
DualSense
that
Go or
yeah,
whatever.
that was kind of like an early version of Cyberpunk, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As in the way it looked and felt in the kind of
Yeah.
the city side of it. Oh, shame, shame. Talking of games, before we get to the next story, did you see that video of the cancelled Call of Duty game from Neversoft?
I've not watched it. I know you sent me the link, but I haven't had a chance to watch that one yet.
Oh, that was awesome. So it was Neversoft, who you may know from the what's it called, skating games. What's his name?
Tony Hawk.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I couldn't think of his name. So they apparently were up to create a Call of Duty game, which was, this is going back some years, so this would have been probably an Xbox 360 kind of
Yeah.
game. That it was going to be known as Call of Duty Future Warfare, and the video that was released showed very typical, similar kind of Call of Duty, but set on a moon-based assault mission. And it
Okay.
was really, I have to say, it looked really good. And the code name was NX1. And it kind of, if you've seen what's the Apple TV show, For All Mankind, it
Yeah.
had kind of, it looked a bit like For All Mankind, kind of space battle. And this is 10 years old, at this stage, but it has been verified by
Sounds
the
kind of like
developers.
was it? They did one in space, didn't they? Is it Infinite Warfare?
I think that had some space
Call of
history.
Duty.
So,
That was space based as well.
yes, so some of the developers who worked on it have confirmed it, and have said that this probably would have been released in place of Call of Duty Ghosts.
Okay.
Apparently, it was quite far down the line. They had 2 to 3 campaign missions made, and a part of the multiplayer framework was built as well. And then it was knocked on the head.
Yeah.
Shame. It
Okay.
looked really good, but if you get a
Shame.
chance to look at it, NX1, yeah. So yeah, but
Nice.
never mind. There you go. They apparently they pivoted from Guitar Hero to Call of Duty. That's a bit of a left turn.
Yeah.
Right. Well, talking about gaming and experiences, then
Yeah.
obviously we're going to talk a bit about the Vision Pro in a moment. But Meta, of course, have responded to the release of the Vision Pro, haven't they? And have decided to kind of make a position, and they draw a line in the
They
sand.
have, yes. So they're not going to be the leaders. Well, I don't know. They are. They want to be the Android of the AR VR world, they've said. So does that mean sell the most headsets? I don't know what they mean by the Android of the AR VR world here.
I was going to say, surely it must be shipping more.
Shipping more, because I suppose it depends on what your view of Android is, isn't it, as an operating system? But yeah, I mean, they seem to be banking on Apple's Vision Pro being a success and helping boost their own VR headset business.
Yeah. So I guess if you look at it, as always, we've got the iPhone Android argument again, and you can see what they're doing. Vision Pro, as we know from the first thing we talked about last week, high-end premium device, iPhone-esque. You're right, Android much more consumer friendly. Does pretty much all of the same things, doesn't it? But maybe not to the same degree. And Meta, I suppose, actually, I think you're right. They are the leader in AR VR at the moment, aren't
Definitely,
they?
the number of headsets shipped, it's going to be Meta, definitely.
And it does. I hate to say this, it does what it says in the tin. It gives you the experience you want. Yeah, Apple's going for a far different approach here, but Meta is kind of the I want to say the for the masses. That's it.
The good enough.
Yeah, but I think they're right here. I mean, look, this is going to help Meta. If the Vision Pro takes off, this will recharge that market space, because people will be looking to get that experience, won't they? And if you can't afford the $3,500 Vision Pro,
$500 is a more appeasing proposition, isn't it?
Bingo. A Quest 3 all of a sudden is a lot more attractive proposition, isn't it?
And the Quest 3 does AR as well. Probably not to the degree that Apple Vision does, but they have shifted that way. It's got a full color pass through. It's apparently okay. I'll say it's not going to be up to the level of the Vision Pro, is it? But again, it might be good enough.
No, the only thing I would say here, and I think it's going to come down to, is software, isn't it? This is going to be about who can capture the right alliances with the developers, the right software launches here to get that. And of course, Meta need to make this an attractive proposition for the developer market, that it isn't going to cause them concern, the same that Apple is with their commission, and that's something else we're going to talk about a bit. Because ultimately these things, the hardware is great, but they live and die on what you can play, what you can use. on them, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But I saw a statement was that there was in the 95 article from Apple saying that was it Greg Josiak in the past apparently said that metaverse is a word he'll never use. Um, I feel
Apparently,
I feel
yeah.
gentlemen, those statements are going to come back and bite you in the arse a little bit. Excuse my language.
Apparently, Meta charge 30% as well.
Oh, they do.
They do, apparently. What was this article dated? Oh, that was 2022, so things may have changed since then. I was trying to see what it was, but yeah, last I heard, 30%.
Well, maybe they'll have to rethink their piece there. You know,
Maybe. Are they the gatekeepers of the VR world?
maybe they are. Maybe they are. You know, maybe that'll push more developers to Apple then, and we'll get a all round experience. Look, yeah, I think this is good. Competition is good for many parties, aren't they? You know, and
Yep,
I think as long as the competition, as long as the competition is fair and the outcome for the consumer is good, then I've got no problem with it.
yep,
And let's talk about it. That's the choice. Isn't it? You have a choice. You have Android, you have Apple.
yep,
So well, yeah, or I should say, you have iOS or you have Android. But you have a choice what you want to spend. You have different price points. Ultimately, they all do the same thing in one way or another. You have ultimately the same outcomes on that device, isn't it? Just in a
yep,
different way of doing it. And the same is going to apply here with Meta and their Quest devices
yeah,
and Apple Vision Pro. The thing is the question really is Meta. I think will get more capital kind of share of this because right now I can take the Meta Pro, I can use it with a Android device, I can use it standalone, I can plug it into my PC and play
yep.
games with it. That Vision Pro doesn't do that at the moment, does it? It's a
No, it's a
very niche
self-contained thing. I think
experience.
you can hook it
Yeah,
up to your Mac, can't you? You can get
of course you can do
experience from your
that. Yeah,
Mac.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, that's definitely something we need to think about. But there we go.
Hmm.
So then, let's talk about Apple's week from hell.
Oh, wow. I mean, where to begin? There was so much. All of a sudden, there was about 20 announcements, wasn't there, from Apple? All to do with, obviously, the Digital Markets Act in the EU and being forced to comply. I think they had a date of, was it the March the 7th, I want to say, to get these changes out. So they did a big bang approach, and I think a lot of it's coming with iOS 17.4, isn't it? Which you've got the beta of. But basically,
Beta, their beta
yeah,
one has dropped. Yeah, correct.
it
Yeah,
has. So they started off with announcing a reduced commission structure for apps in Europe. So this is where you pay. Currently, is it 30% to Apple,
yeah,
or is it 15% if you're below a certain threshold? I want to
yeah.
say.
But below that kind of cap level, isn't it? That
Yeah,
cut off.
it
Yeah.
is. So they reduced that. So again, EU only. So right, you can now accept alternate terms. You can stay where you currently are with a 13%, 30%, 15%, depending on volume, or accept the new terms, which basically a commission rate of 17% plus an extra 3% if you're going to use Apple's in-app purchase system. Obviously, if you're using someone else's payment processing, then you don't pay that 3%. Uh, for the small business developers, the ones that were paying 15%, they can now take a 10%, again, plus 3% for the payment if you want to. Um, but this is the gotcha. There is now a new core technology fee for high
Yeah.
volume apps. So basically, this applies if your annual install for the apps is over 1 million installs per year. And if you are, you have to pay 50 or zero point 0.5 of a euro, so 50 euro cents per annual install. And basically, the first time you install it in that 12-month period, the developer gets charged for it. And and you can install it as many times as you want, and they won't get recharged. But if you still have it installed the next 12 months, they get another charge as well. So,
I can see a problem here. Can you see the problem here?
well, the problem for me is if you have a wildly successful free app all of a sudden and you go over the
Yes.
million, you're now owing money and not making any money.
No.
So do you want to play that game? I would suggest if you're building a free app, stick to the old terms.
Yeah.
Definitely. If you're doing a paid for app, then maybe the new ones are better terms. But obviously, you're going to have to pay that money if you go over 1 million.
So this is the concern that I have here is
Yeah.
that exactly to your point. Let's just say you and I create a wildly successful free application that goes viral but it cost us nothing to build. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's just say
We're not
we
making
stumbled
money out of
on,
it.
we stumbled on something amazing. But all of a sudden,
Yeah.
let's say Flappy Bird. That's a great
Yeah.
example, isn't
Flappy
it?
Bird, yeah.
We create the next Flappy Bird that took us 10 minutes to code, basically, but all of a sudden becomes a cult hit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that crashes over 1 million downloads, and we're screwed. Because all of a sudden, how are we going to pay that? This isn't a job for us. This isn't a commercial venture where you're going to be absolutely de-incentivized to want to create any application on iOS unless you are commercial.
You immediately owe Apple €500,000.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa, per year. Sorry, per year.
Yeah. Okay, different if you've got a commercial business here, an application where you're charging some outcomes.
You can factor that in, mate. You've got a subscription-based app that's, I don't know, €5 a month, whatever. And then, 50, half a euro hit out of that per year is nothing. It's something you can factor into your costs.
And you can do that. But if you, like, say, you've got a successful application, a free app, you're going to be terrified, aren't you? I mean, okay, let's be honest. I know Apple say it. So Apple reckon, is it less than 1% of developers are going to pay this? Let's call it the CTF. Because 1 million downloads is, it is a large install base, but it does happen. It does happen.
And we'll get to that when we talk about the third-party stores. But yes, even third-party stores are going to have to pay this fee. So if you want to make your own store, and you don't get that million install grace period either with a third-party store. Every person that installs your third-party store, you have to pay €0.50 for per year.
Apple sometimes absolutely puzzle me in their approach, because why?
Why? Because they don't want this. They're being forced to it, so they're
penalising you and me.
They're penalising everyone. They're abiding to the very strictest terms of the law here. So if it says this, they'll do exactly that, but nothing else. So they're not doing the spirit of the law. They're doing the exact terms of the law on what they can get away with. They don't want you to install a third party. They don't want you to go anywhere else.
No, but the other thing is, though, it says here though that you don't have to use a new structure.
No, you can stay with the old one.
So you can sit there with the old structure, but at some point, that surely they're going to want to shift people across to unify their approach. But it just is worrying, isn't it, that they are.
I suppose they need the old one in place because a lot of applications are free on the App Store.
Yes, exactly. So you don't want
to cut all those off. So stick to the old rate. Not you're going to pay anything, but
This is going to be a real test for other software vendors who are going to fall into this place, in particularly obviously on the Android marketplaces now. How are they going to respond to this as well? Because surely, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of people who are going to read that and perhaps interpreted it in a really kind of terrifying way, and now may not want to ever develop for iOS again because they feel that's the way, is the way to go.
But only in the EU.
Granted.
Sorry, the European Economical Area, not the EU, because Britain is part of the EU, but we're not in the EEA where this applies.
Well, we're not technically in the EU.
Oh, sorry. We're in Europe. Sorry, not in the EU. Sorry, I should clarify that one. We are in Europe, but not the EU.
And then the European Economic Area, isn't it?
But doesn't that differ slightly from the EU as a whole? There's some nuance there, isn't there?
Yeah, because the Economic Area also goes out to countries that aren't full members as well, isn't it?
That was it. Switzerland and stuff like that. Is it Switzerland? It's not part of the EU.
Not in the same way, no. And
not in the same way. There's a nuance there, isn't there?
Yeah. So with that, then we got, let's say, 17.4 iOS 17.4 beta 1 dropped as well, didn't it? Which brought with it some of these changes. Then
it did, yeah. So not only did we get the reduced rates, we obviously then got the ability for new app stores. Okay, so alternate marketplaces, again, EU only. Again, there are caveats to this. So we're let's just read my notes here. So basically, this is the one. Yeah. So if you want to run a third-party app store, not anyone can do this, of course. You need is it notarization requirements, is what
That's it.
Apple
Yeah.
calls them. Yes. So basically, I'm trying to get my head around how this actually works.
Well, it's the same on Mac, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah.
So basically, you need to go through this process of basically having your app reviewed and receiving an installation key. Okay, so even if you're using a third-party market, you still need to be an Apple developer, so you need to sign up to Apple developer account. My understanding from reading it is actually the app itself is still stored on Apple servers and distributed from there. The marketplace is really kind of a middleman who advertises it, may take a payment cut, etc. But it's still authorized by Apple servers and distributed from that, is my understanding, but wasn't entirely clear. But
Yeah,
hey,
so it's slightly different. So with Mac, notarization
yeah,
on a Mac, as an example, is an automated process.
right.
So it basically is to say that if you ever seen, I don't, you've probably seen a screenshot, you probably haven't, but it says you go to install an app and it says XY app is an app that's been downloaded from the internet. Are you sure?
Oh, is it Gatekeeper? What do we call it?
Yeah, you want to basically. So that is it. So Gatekeeper basically is telling you that whoa. But what it's telling you is that it knows it's been notarized. So
Yeah.
and that is not an app review system. It is an automated approach that scans it for content, code signing issues. Basically, just to say, look, it's an app. It meets the definition of an app. It's got the right settings, but look, Apple didn't. This hasn't come from the App Store,
Yeah.
so quite frankly, we don't know whether or not it's really going to be truly safe. But in there is you've got to have the developer ID key in there. So if anything does go wrong, Apple can still pull it back to you. So I understand from what I understand, I think you're right. The iOS approach is similar. It's still a gatekeeper approach, but yeah, as you say, it's still another step for people.
It is, yeah. Apparently, they have automated checks as well as go through what Apple describes as a baseline human review, and they're looking for accuracy, functionality, safety, security, and privacy around the apps. But the other big one is what was I say? So it goes along with this notarization. You also have to have what they call a letter of credit.
Yeah, this is a crazy part.
Potential app store providers basically need to provide evidence that they can financially support developers and customers of their platform, which sounds kind of correct. Yeah, I can get on board with that one. But what does that evidence look like, really? So basically, they need to get a letter of credit to the tune of €1 million from a credit rated agency, don't they? Credit rating agency. So S&P, Fitch, Moody's, but to basically say they've got £1 million.
This is just bonkers, isn't it?
Oh, it has to be every year as well, not just the first time you do the App Store. You have to renew this or show evidence every year as well to Apple.
It's just this is Apple. This is their poison pill, isn't it? To stop you doing this. There's nothing to say they can't do this. There's no legislation to say they can't do this. No. They, they are absolutely taking this to the nth degree to stop you doing this.
You can, and I can kind of see the point of protecting. Yeah, if anyone could fire up a third-party app store.
Yeah.
What's to stop the app store provider stealing all the money that gets paid?
No, you're right.
So I can see the reasoning behind that one, but it's a bitter pill to swallow.
It is, isn't it?
I don't think you have to worry about that with people like Microsoft and even Tom Sweeney himself is going to have an Epic store, and they'll probably be the first people out with it.
God, they will, won't they?
They will be, and they will pay developers. Much as I don't like the guy. He's not going to not pay the developers. But if some shady person, or not necessarily shady, someone with good intentions, it just goes horribly wrong, it puts a lot of developers and potential users out of money.
It does, but there are ways of doing this. Surely, to me, it's a lot of money. It's a lot.
We will see what the EU say. But I presume though the EU are on board with this one. This shouldn't be a surprise, though. I imagine they ran this past the EU before announcing this. You would have fought.
Well, just by the way, Epic have already teased that
Was it
Fortnite's coming
lawsuit
back.
time?
No, so they tweeted on the 25th of Jan.
Yeah.
Fortnite game says, remember Fortnite and iOS? How about we bring that back? I quote, later this year, Fortnite will return in Europe on iOS through the Epic Games Store. Then they put in brackets, shout out DMA, an important new law launching in the EU, making that possible. Apple, we're watching you.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, didn't they have their developer ID revoked?
I thought they did. So I was trying to wonder how this is going to work. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure on that one. Did they have?
Because Tim Sweeney Tim Sweeney said that Fortnite was based. I think didn't he talk about being blacklisted? Didn't he?
Quite possibly, yeah.
I'm sure that was what he said at some point about being blacklisted or words to that effect. But
yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that materializes.
it just made me smile though when you said about that. But I mean, a million euros of credit. As you say, then this is
it's not a huge amount for a proper business.
No, because
but it kind of rules out your hobbyists creating a store for maybe whatever reason. Homebrew, something like that,
Yeah, which is what they don't want. Again, this is what Apple are trying to avoid. They're trying to remove all of that, risk, as they say it.
Yeah, cracked games, cracked apps for free, that kind of stuff. Like is it Cydia?
Well, their press release, wasn't it? This is the thing. Take a step back a moment. The press release they put out, in one hand, talked around complying with the rules, didn't it? And this is what we're going to be offering. And then literally in the same breath, made it very clear in quite...
we're not happy.
Yeah, in legalese, that's the right word, isn't it?
Yes.
How Apple thought this was the worst thing ever. And, we really strongly recommend that you don't do this, you don't have it.
And that's why it's only coming out in the EU where we're basically forced to.
Yes. But I really do see the US catching up on this. I think the US will follow suit. I think it may be done at a state level, thinking like the California Privacy Act and things like that, and others. I really think the US will catch up on this. But it isn't. So we've got the App Store. Then we've got to get the free App Store. But this is now also affecting other parts, isn't it?
It is. So yes, we're getting the. So Apple with 17.4, apparently the first time you launch Safari, it will prompt you to say, do you want to make Safari your default browser or offer you other options? But they're also, with the same breath, giving us third-party web engines, because currently all browsers with your Chrome, Firefox, or somewhere else on iOS still use the WebKit engine. So now you're about to have the Chrome engine, the Firefox engine, or any of that engine there on the device.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. Chrome is basically a reskinned Safari, isn't it?
They're just different wrappers around WebKit with some extra features or not. But Apple is apparently creating new APIs to support these features. You can have it as default again, like you could before anyway. They're giving you a bit to use that engine as an in-app browser with an application, so you could call the Chrome engine rather than the WebKit within your app. Again, EU only, obviously, because they're being forced to that, so you're not getting it anywhere else. What else did we get? We're getting game streaming, or the ability to have game streaming on an app store. Because obviously, when Microsoft brought out Game Pass, Apple basically said, you need to create a separate app for every single game you're streaming, didn't they? For your entire catalog. Which is odd, because you don't have to do that with Netflix for movies or Spotify for songs. But Apple will now allow you to have one app with multiple streaming games. They're allowing chatbots. I wasn't sure what that was about, because can't you already get ChatGPT?
Yeah, you've already got that. Yeah,
I imagine there's some nuance I'm missing there, but they're loosening the rules.
Maybe it's built in, because remember, Apple are weird about apps that have got other apps built in, haven't they?
Yeah, so they're kind of allowing that now. And again, this isn't actually going to be EU only. This is worldwide. So we should hopefully at some point have a dedicated client for Game Pass, I imagine.
Now, this I think will be really, really good.
Yeah.
Because this will also, Microsoft will benefit from this massively, given the xCloud gaming piece. I think this is going to be, for us, people who are on Game Pass and people who are interested, is going to be, because now I'll be able to say, right, I take my iPad in the controller,
Yeah.
I'm going to get that native experience as opposed to having it do through a browser, which is
Which
not
was
always
kind
the
of limited when
same.
it came to controls and other bits and
Yeah,
pieces.
it's all
So
a
yeah,
bit, but yeah, exactly. So having all of that, I think, is going to be really good. Though it's interesting though to talk about Microsoft because they've actually denounced, haven't they, the plans on the DMA, not the DMA itself, but one of the leaders from the oh, excuse me, one of the Microsoft leaders has said that they don't believe that the plans by Apple are actually conclusive to helping their consumers, and they've asked them to listen to feedback. Um,
okay.
so whether or not they do or not, I think that's purely around the whole structuring, isn't it? Because it's going to cost Microsoft money. If Microsoft want to launch an app store, it's going to cost them money.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it will do. Yeah, for every user that installs the third party store, whether they use it or not.
yeah, so they're not going to want to do that. To go back to your browser piece, though, is interesting because if you think about the moment, Apple have already been allowing this for a while in the sense that you could choose a different browser,
Yeah,
not
you
the
can have a
WebKit
default
engine,
browser, can't you now? But that
which
doesn't
came in.
control the in-app browser it calls.
No,
The
you're
embedded
right.
one in and Reddit,
Yeah,
for example, or Twitter. You click a link and it opens a web page, but that's still using WebKit. So apparently that can now be a Firefox or Chrome's engine.
yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? So I think these are steps in the right direction. Um, This is no different though to what we've seen previously with Windows 11,
Yeah,
Windows generally, I mean not Windows 11. Um, these changes are coming. This whole browser thing. I mean, that just history repeating itself, isn't
it
it?
is. Now,
Um,
mm,
that one made me smile when I saw that, but it is just history repeating itself.
it is, yeah.
But
Now, I was going to
I,
say, if you've not already had enough caveats, there are plenty more.
oh yes, there's always a caveat, my friend.
There is. Now, all these wonderful things, if you are in the EU and you thought you were golden, well, yeah, the EU only ruled that iOS was a gatekeeper, not the iPad OS or tvOS or watchOS were gatekeepers. So, a lot of this only applies to your iPhone. So, yeah, a quick rundown. Third-party app stores going to be iPhone only, no iPad at all on that one. The new prompt for Safari, again, is iPhone only. Support for third-party browser engines is iPhone only. All one we missed, the ability to set default NFC and wallet apps will be available on iPhone only. You got that one. Changes to the App Store policies are across any platform, but again, still limited to the EU. But the game streaming one, that's going to be worldwide on any platform.
Yeah.
Which kind of puts a span on the whole works. If I want to use a third party store to get, I don't know, say Fortnite, for example, then I can only have it on my iPhone and not my iPad. The same for my
And
shiny
only
new
and,
Chrome
and
with the
only
built in Chrome engine.
only in the EU as well.
And only in the EU if it's Tuesday at 4 o'clock and the wind is blowing this way.
This is Apple again splitting hairs because we all know iPad OS is iOS with some slight variations.
Of course
The
it is.
core code base is exactly the same, and as far as the DMA ruling really goes, if we start to step it back here, as far as they're concerned, the App Store is a gatekeeping service, and that is across all of Apple's outcome, is it? Not
Yeah,
just
that's why there's a
the
mixture on there. I suppose Apple are trying to play the EU at their own game. The EU are very specific on things like you have to have USB-C as a charging port.
yeah.
This particular platform is a gatekeeper, but this one isn't. So I suppose Apple are playing them at their own game. If you want to be very specific, we will also be very specific. Not that this helps anyone other than Apple, but I see what they're doing, and
Do you know where
I
I
find
see
it
this?
quite funny.
I
Yeah,
do as well, and I think I see how this is going to play out. I think I give it 12 months
the
for responsive.
DMA 2.0.
I think they'll be going, but I think they'll be. I mean, I would suspect the EU's already reviewing this as well. But wouldn't you be surprised that there'll be amendments to the DMA
Yeah.
in the next 12 to 18 months that start to kind of clamp down on some of these
Yeah.
practices to avoid other vendors doing it?
Clearly, someone in the EU or people in the EU when they were drafting this underestimated Apple and its fleet of lawyers.
Well, you do that at your peril. Let's be honest, isn't it?
Well, this is what I think they've learned, haven't they?
You absolutely do that at your peril.
Like the USB charging standard, or Apple were just going to put USB-C, but with USB 2.0 speeds in it. Unless you've
Yeah.
got the Pro version where you get USB 3 speeds or 4 speeds or whatever.
just. I mean, look, I love Apple. I love their vision. I love what the company does hardware wise. We've all bought into we've all swallowed the red pill, as they
But
say.
they could be a real arse sometimes.
They really can, can't they?
They can
To the
be,
point. To the point, this I feel is always detrimental to their consumer base because what they're doing here ultimately is going to impact
But
the whole.
that's the way Apple's been ever since Steve Jobs. We've got a vision. This is how we're going to do it. Get on board or don't buy an Apple product. This is just how it is. You know
And
this
you know
going
what?
in.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, when you strip it right back, you don't have to buy their products or services.
No, you're not being forced to and then told you have to do it this way. You don't have to buy this.
No, there are choices in the marketplace.
If you
But
want the open and free and do what you want, you go with Android. If you want a more curated, lockdown, whatever vision, then you go with Apple.
Yeah, no, it is. I'm with you. It's just.
I spent a lot of time laughing that night when they still dropped. Oh dear.
Yeah, so there you have it. Hell has frozen over, at least in the EU for Apple,
and on iPhone.
And on iPhone. But changes are coming, and I think this will have a wider impact across the whole of the Apple ecosystem, not just to the EU. I think we would be naive to say that this is going to be localized. And I think anybody who is a consumer of Apple in the US or other countries probably should realize that these changes are going to impact you at some point. I think the Asian markets are probably going to be next with the third party.
Yeah, South Korea and stuff like that, I imagine.
I think they'll definitely follow on. And the US, look, lawmakers there are cracking down on big tech. We all know that. I think it was yesterday in the US. Wasn't Mark Zuckerberg getting grilled by some congressional hearing?
Oh, he was, yeah, about safety on social media apps and stuff, wasn't he?
Yeah, excuse me. I think it was him, wasn't it? And there were several other tech CEOs that are up at Capitol Hill. And I heard, I think I read, according to the BBC at least, that he was almost forced into apologizing.
He did apologize to the audience, didn't he? But he will not pay any money as a fine. So it was a hollow. Sorry.
Yeah, there was. Just on that point, you're right. There was some issues. We'll cover that probably in the next episode. But TikTok were also in the room as well.
So were X.
Yeah.
But so one other thing to add to the iOS Apple story is, and we didn't mention it, it was all the extra feet. What do I call it? Way to determine where the user is.
Oh yes, we didn't. Sorry, we didn't mention that.
Lots of extra safeguards in there, not just your GPS location or your IP address. You can't fool it with a VPN. It takes historical records into account, all sorts of clever metrics to figure out where your home country really is.
And that's right. And it shows up now. And that point, you're right. So if you're using 17.4 or when you comes out, you have to go into your phone, iPhone, of course, go into settings, general, about, and at the bottom of the screen, scroll right to the bottom, it says identifiable region in large bulk capital letters. And mine says GB, obviously, because we're not in the EU. I think this will change because A, it's in capitals, and B, at the bottom, it's got like a tag that says identifiable region footer change. So I think that's clear placeholder at the minute.
So this is the gatekeeper behind unlocking or disabling those features. So it's in there for everyone if you're in the right region, or as your home region, I should say. So it's very easy for Apple on the server level to flick a switch and say, GB is now allowed all this. The US is now allowed that, etc.
Yeah, and this is all of this. Let's be really clear about this. Anybody that says, "Oh, this stuff isn't available in the US," no, it is. You're just not seeing it. All of these capabilities. This is just flick a switch time. But yeah, very, very valid point there. You're right to how they're doing that. I think we should have covered that. Well,
I think that was it.
I was going to say we covered a lot there this week. I think it was a lot to cover. Next week, I'll say we won't be back next week. I said we're going to be going dark for 2 weeks. So we'll be back towards the third week of February with the latest tech news and stories, and hopefully catch up and round up of everything that's happened over the next couple of weeks. Of course, you can still find us on Twitter. We're at Weekly Tech Rant. Of course, all our show notes at techrant.online for all the things we talked about here and all the links to the stories that we've referenced, including the Apple bucket load of stories. There was no rumor mill this week, but that will be coming back as we get knee deep into WWDC Apple release territory in the
Yep.
coming months. But with that, I've been Jay.
I've been Carl. Have a good day, all.